My name is Lucille Karatzas, and I'm a clinical social worker and a member of Transition Life Consultants. I'm really glad that you are all able to be here today. Last month on Ask TLC, they spoke about how throughout our lives, we receive many messages from a variety of sources, and that we're all works in progress and have the ability to make changes that will lead to greater peace and contentment. This and many other presentations are available on our website at tlc.services.org, tlc-services.org. They're really worth watching. Today, I would like to build on this by exploring some of the messages, advice, feedback, and guidance and expressions that we've been exposed to during our life's journey. It may be helpful to explore just for a little bit where some of the messages and advice that we have come from. Some of the advice is imprinted on us from our childhood, from parents and family, and later on, perhaps from a wider world of friends, people we work with, people we look up to. Over the decades of our life, these come together with the help, these come together to help form who we become, and by focusing on what we choose to listen to and incorporate into our lives. Let's explore some of these messages that may have come across as advice. Early messages that may stick with us, that we may not even be aware still affects us, whether they're true or not. Some of these are, children should be seen and not heard. This may lead to difficulty in trusting ourselves, trusting our opinions, or being afraid to voice them. How about, your sister is so pretty, or tiny, or smart? Some of us hearing this may internalize that in that case, that must mean that we're ugly, fat, or not very bright. Another message we may hear is, you're so creative. This may give us confidence to try new things. How about, your smile lights up the room? Someone who hears this as a child may feel that inner glow of light and give them a sense of power and confidence. Don't be afraid to share that inner light with other people when you have it. Another message may be, and this is one I grew up with a great deal, girls should act like ladies at all times, and boys don't cry. Some of these messages may make us unnecessarily self-conscious. We also have some gender-specific messages that may make us question our own identity, and whole categories of choices may have never been considered for us. For instance, if we internalize the messages, we may want to think about being a carpenter, but if we're a girl, that doesn't even rise to the surface. Or someone wants to be a nurse. If they happen to be a female, they may be considered as though, well, why wouldn't you want to be a doctor? You know, we need male nurses, and nurses are very vital to our care of our older people and of all ages. So these really can affect how we feel and how we see ourselves. Sometimes it's about expectations. Always to put others first is a message that many of us received when we were younger. We often do this at the expense of our own self-care. We may feel exhausted and guilty when we don't live up to that unreasonable standard. I have a friend who recently said that she was no longer going to put herself last. And she started doing this by deciding to no longer take the broken cookie when she served cookies that she had just made. Now, that may seem silly. It may seem like a very trivial thing, but it's the first step in reclaiming her identity and her need to care for herself. That doesn't mean she's not going to be a caring, loving caregiver, but she's realizing that she doesn't always have to put herself first. So these messages become part of our self-talk, and they affect our view of the world. We may judge ourselves against these standards and come out wanting. However, the good news is that we can make the choice to keep alive those messages alive, or to replace them if necessary. We can also embrace those positive messages and add them to our list of things we should be grateful for. We may draw as adults from teachers' voices that we carry in our minds, mentors, extended families, friends, co-workers, supervisors, articles that we've read, presentations like we're doing today, to accept new points of view. There's an old expression which has been credited to many different sources. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. We are always students of life, no matter our age. And I think this particular group that have been attending the Ask TLC has really proven that. The interactions between you when we do the question and comment section has been so enlightening to all of us. We as TLCs, as counselors and therapists, we learn from you just as much as we learned through our education. So this is valuable for all of us. So now I'd like to share a few pieces of advice that I've picked up along the way. Some are very personal. Some I've learned from clients and other sources. So here are some of my favorites. The first one is be authentic. You are at your best there. Join the woodworkers club or the basket weaving club, whether you're male or female. Follow your heart. Do what it is that you feel an urge to do without judging whether it meets the society's norms. It's so freeing to be able to do that. Another one that is my favorite that I learned many, many years ago when I was going to school and raising a family was, don't put it down, put it away. This saved my sanity because I was trying to do so many things. And you all know that feeling, whether it's caretaking for someone or being part of an organization and doing various things. You like to have some sense of calm and some sense of organization. So I initially had that, don't put it down, put it away on my refrigerator so that I and my family could look at it. And once we started practicing that, it became just a matter of fact. When I come in, I put my purse on the hook wherever it is, and I'm not going to tell you where it is in my house. I put my keys at the same place every time. I trained my husband and children. If they have a jacket on when they come in, they know where it belongs. So rather than put it on a chair, have to move it again later, you're going to have to move it eventually anyway. Why not do it right at that time? It saves a lot of stress and a lot of extra work. Another favorite piece of advice that I love is keep it simple. Don't make things more complicated than they need to be, especially when you're stressed. Sometimes we may need to lower our expectations. Everything doesn't have to be perfect. Even if you buy the don't put it down, put it away, there are times where you're going to come in and you're going to put your jacket on a chair, and that's okay. You know, we're not looking for perfection here. We're looking for people to find ways of living their lives the best they can. This one I recently came across, and I really think it's something that we need to take to heart. Don't take criticism from someone you would not go to for advice. I mean, how logical is that? sometimes people give all kinds of advice. It doesn't mean we have to take it, and pay attention. Whose advice do you want to listen to? Learn to trust your own gut is very important. Another is perfect is the enemy of good. We've all talked about that, especially in TLC. As we try to meet everyone's needs and are aware that we can't possibly do that. Sometimes we have to lower our expectations, do the minimal that we can. We may want to see somebody for long-term help, but we are only 20 counselors. We can't do everything. So trying to be perfect and meet everyone's every need is not possible. So let's not be perfect. Good enough is often very good. Another one of my favorites that I learned when I was working at the mental health center in New Hampshire is just because it's a good idea doesn't mean you have to do it. I came across this, my boss is the one that told me this. I had gone to a workshop where I had heard about the fact that abused women, women that are affected by domestic violence, oftentimes don't want to go to a shelter or get help because they're afraid that their abuser will hurt their pet if they leave the pet behind, and a lot of places don't accept pets. So I came back from that meeting and I went to my boss and I said, I have a great idea. I work with elderly people, some of whom really need a sense of purpose. How about we put those elderly people as foster parents to pets, and that might allow the person who needs to go to a shelter to do that. And my boss's response was, that's a very good idea, Lucille, but do you have the time to do that? How many hours are you working above what we're paying you? And I had to admit that my plate was definitely overloaded at that time. So I had to make the choice to let that wonderful idea go, leave it to the ether to hope that someone at some point will come up with the same idea, or present it for other people to take that mantle. But just because it was a good idea didn't mean I had to do it. Another piece of advice that I love is I never lose. I either win or I learn something. With that mindset, it allows us to take more chances. If we're always afraid of not succeeding or of losing or not being perfect, we may limit our choices. We may limit what we do and thereby limit the potential of something that can be very exciting and interesting in our lives. When someone is giving you a suggestion or advice, you can say, I appreciate the feedback. This doesn't say you will necessarily take the advice, but keep it under consideration. You don't have to say yes or no. You don't have to take the advice, but you can take it under advisement. In a similar vein, you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. Sometimes just being silent is a good choice. Or you could say, you may have a point, but don't engage further. You may decide to agree to disagree. Don't throw away a good relationship over a disagreement. Remember, when you are disagreeing with someone, what you liked about that person. That disagreement you're having at the moment is just a small blip on the screen. Focus on what it is you like about that relationship and move on. Another that I came across recently was, it's okay to be loving and kind to yourself as you are to your dog. Now, all you dog lovers here know that your dog gets undivided attention. They get patted when they ask for it. They get fed. They get walked. Well, you could do those things for yourself just as well, and should. So be as kind to yourself as you are to your dog. Another is don't hide your light under a bushel. Fear of being seen as taking up too much space can minimize our ability to be authentically ourselves. If you are good at something, it's okay to be good at that, and you don't have to hide that under a bushel. Be sensitive to sharing time and opinions, though, but don't be afraid to own the talents that you have. That's something I'm constantly learning. And Karen Haskell has been one of my teachers on that point. I have to remind myself it's okay to be me, even if it feels like maybe people might be judging me as being a know-it-all or whatever. Being sensitive to it, but not hiding my light under a bushel is a good thing. The point is pause before you respond to something, before judging, before assuming, before accusing. Pause whenever you're about to react harshly, and you'll avoid doing and saying things you'll regret later. Thanks, Bonnie. I think waiting 24 hours before sending that email that might be negative might save embarrassment. It might also allow you to have a little bit of perspective. And also remember that just because you think something doesn't mean you have to share it. You don't always have to respond. So those are my favorite pieces of advice, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what pieces of advice you have come with that come to mind and that you're willing to share with us.